Julian slid the termination papers across the polished mahogany table and said, "We're bringing in consultants with fresh perspectives. Your legacy systems are holding us back." My name is Caleb Mercer. I'm 47 years old. And up until that moment, I'd been Iron Veil Technologies' senior systems architect for 18 years. I built their core software platform from scratch, fueled by nothing but caffeine and code, back when we were just 6 people working out of a warehouse in Seattle. Without showing any emotion, I nodded and accepted the packet. I didn't argue or beg. I simply said, "I understand." Then, while HR observed silently, I began packing up my desk. Our new CEO had been with the company exactly 3 months. He was a young man, barely hitting 40, brought in by the private equity firm that bought us the previous year. Always dressed in tailored suits, he spoke about streamlining operations and modernizing our approach. Yet, never once did he ask me how the system actually functioned. That very morning, I saw him swagger into the office accompanied by 2 consultants from some trendy San Francisco firm. It didn't take a genius to guess what was coming next. 18 years. I turned down higher-paying offers, missed my son's baseball games, spent countless nights fixing server problems while everyone else slept. I did it all because I believed in what we were building. They gave me 30 minutes to clear out, and I was done in 15. On my way out, I passed Donna from accounting. She'd been with me since the early days. Her eyes widened when she saw the box of my belongings. "Caleb, what's going on?" she asked. I replied quietly, "Time for fresh perspectives." The security guard escorted me out. Tyler, a good kid whose dad and I often fish with on weekends, looked down and said, "I'm sorry about this, Mr. Mercer. It's not your fault." I drove home in silence. No music, no calls. Just the steady rhythm of the windshield wipers clearing the Seattle rain. My wife, Karen, hadn't come home yet. I placed my box on the kitchen counter and took out my coffee mug, family photos, and a small external hard drive. None of it company property. Then I brewed a fresh pot of coffee and pulled out my personal laptop. I opened a folder I had created years ago containing documentation proving that I wrote the core algorithm powering Iron Veil's entire platform, on my own time with my own equipment. The timestamp and copyright registration on it were dated 6 months before my employment contract even began. I had licensed this algorithm to the company on a perpetual basis, something the new management clearly never bothered to check. Sipping my coffee, I knew I wouldn't have to wait long. The first system failure would come within days. I met Harold Voss in 2004 at a programming conference in Portland. We connected over a shared frustration with the inventory management systems available at the time. He just started Iron Veil with his brother-in-law and 3 developers. Their products showed promise but couldn't scale. Over beers, I sketched an algorithm to fix their database bottleneck. He hired me on the spot. For the first 5 years, we worked 80-hour weeks. I missed my daughter Olivia's first steps because I was debugging server crashes. Karen nearly left me twice. "You're married to that company," she would say, and she wasn't wrong. When Harold had a heart attack in 2011, I stepped up. Not as CEO, I didn't want that job, but as the technical backbone who kept things running while everyone else panicked. When investors showed interest, I presented our growth metrics. When competitors tried to poach our engineers, I convinced key team members to stay. Harold sold the company in 2019, saying he was tired and wanted to spend time with his grandkids. I understood, but that's when the first cracks appeared. The new owners were different, all about quarterly numbers and growth projections. Then the pandemic hit. Our system kept working while others failed. Hospitals, supply chains, and government agencies relied on us completely. I worked 20-hour days to make sure nothing broke. The board gave me a plaque and a bonus. Nice gestures, but just gestures. Last year, the company was acquired again, this time by private equity. They installed Julian Keene as CEO. 2 weeks after he started, he canceled our annual development retreat. Unnecessary expense, he said, though it cost less than his signing bonus. 3 weeks in, he reorganized the engineering team without consulting me, bringing in his Stanford buddies as strategy consultants. A month ago, during a management meeting, he called me old school and said we needed to rethink our approach from the ground up. I saw it coming, but kept my head down and kept the systems running. Karen noticed something was wrong. She's always been perceptive. "They're pushing you out, aren't they?" she asked one night. "Maybe," I shrugged. "What are you going to do?" I had no answer. But that weekend, I updated my records, verified my copyright registration, and made sure my personal code repositories were properly documented. Not because I planned to cause trouble, but because I believe in being prepared. Through it all, I kept one secret. The original algorithm, the mathematical core of everything Iron Veil sold, had never actually been transferred to the company. I'd licensed it to them. There's a difference, a big one. 3 days after my termination, I was fixing the backyard fence when my phone started buzzing. 5 missed calls from Iron Veil's main number, 2 from Julian's direct line, 1 voicemail. "Caleb, this is Julian. We're having issues with the core systems. Need your expertise. Call me back ASAP." I put my phone away and kept hammering. An hour later, more calls and texts flooded in from former team members. Systems were crashing. Nobody knew what to do. The consultants had broken something in the main algorithm. Clients were threatening to pull their contracts. I finished the fence, took a shower, and made dinner for Karen and the kids. We watched a movie together, and I turned my phone off. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Julian marked "Urgent Consulting Opportunity." He offered $300 an hour to help with transition issues. No mention of what had happened 3 days earlier. I politely declined. By noon, their legal team contacted me about proprietary technology and employee obligations. I forwarded the message to my lawyer without comment. An hour later, my lawyer called me laughing. "They clearly haven't read your original contracts," he said. "The algorithm's copyright is registered to you personally. You granted them a license that specifically forbids modifications without your written consent. You're completely in the clear." That's when reality truly hit me. 18 years. All that sacrifice, missed recitals, birthdays, sleepless nights, and they tossed me aside like outdated hardware. I went to my home office and pulled out a business card I'd kept in my desk drawer for nearly a year. Elaine Winters, CTO of Meridian Systems. She'd approached me at a conference last spring, impressed with what Iron Veil had built. "If you ever want to change," she said, "we'd create something special for you." Back then, I was loyal. Now, I was free. I didn't call Elaine immediately. Instead of heading straight home, I took a drive to Lake Washington and settled down to watch boats slice through the calm water. For the first time in many years, my mind wasn't tangled in server issues or code deployments. My phone buzzed again. "Caleb, this is Julian. We really need to talk. The situation's critical." "I'm listening." "Our clients are on the verge of walking away. The consultants can't untangle your system architecture. We need you back." "For what role?" I asked, pausing. "As a senior consultant, with appropriate compensation, naturally." There was a hesitation. "Also, about those legacy systems. We might have misjudged their condition." I watched a blue heron land elegantly on a dock across the water. "I'll think about it," I replied, though I already knew I wouldn't return. Not as a consultant, certainly not on their terms. During the drive back, my thoughts were calm but resolute. It wasn't only that they required me, it was that I no longer needed them. 2 days later, I accepted Ila's invitation for lunch. We met at a quiet restaurant in Bellevue, well away from the hustle of Seattle's tech hub. "I heard about Iron Veil's troubles," she said after we'd ordered. "Their systems have been unstable for nearly a week now." I gave a brief nod but said nothing. The clients, especially healthcare networks, are growing anxious. I took a sip of water. They have capable engineers, but they lack the original architect. She studied me carefully. You created something extraordinary there, Caleb. It shouldn't be lost due to corporate short-sightedness. She slid a folder toward me. Inside was an offer: Chief Innovation Officer, double my previous salary, equity, and freedom to pick my team. We want to build the next iteration of what you developed, she explained, but this time with the respect you deserve. I told her I needed to think it over and discuss it with Karen first. When I got home, a black sedan was parked outside our house. Two sharply dressed men stood on the porch, Iron Veil's attorneys. Mr. Mercer, the elder one began, we've been trying to reach you regarding an urgent matter. I'm no longer with the company. This concerns intellectual property created during your employment. We will require access to all your personal devices for review. It's standard procedure. I knew exactly what they were after. Evidence that I'd taken company code or used their resources to build my algorithm, anything to undermine my copyright. You'll need to speak with my lawyer, I said, handing over his card. I have nothing else to add. That evening, Julian called once more. Your lawyer's making things difficult, he said. This could escalate. Legal battles, negative press. None of us want that. What do you want, Julian? I'm offering you a return. 6 months at full pay, assist the transition team with system knowledge, then part ways on good terms. The company retains full rights to the technology. You get a clean break. I reminded him the core algorithm was never Iron Veil's property. I licensed it to them before even joining as an employee. Silence on the line. That's nonsense. Everything you developed was work for hire. Check the original 2004 licensing agreement. It's still binding. That document doesn't exist. We've searched thoroughly. Harold kept a copy. I have a copy. The Copyright Office has a copy. More silence. We'll verify your claim, he finally said, voice tense. Take your time. The next day, they locked out all my former colleagues' access while consultants scrambled to rebuild the system. By nightfall, 3 client servers had failed completely. Karen found me in the garage, methodically sorting through tools I hadn't touched in years. They're falling apart, aren't they? She asked. I nodded. Does that bring you satisfaction? I put down the wrench. No. Good people work there. They don't deserve this. Neither did you, she whispered. The following morning, news of critical system failures sent Iron Veil's stock plunging 20%. Former teammates messaged me. What did you do? Did you sabotage something before you left? I replied the same to all. I did nothing. They altered a licensed component without authorization. By afternoon, Julian shifted from threats to offers, a generous consulting contract, and a public apology. I said nothing. That evening, a consultant uncovered the licensing agreement in Harold's archives. Within an hour, Iron Veil's lawyers reached out to my attorney. Their tone completely changed. The trap they set had snapped shut around them instead. A week after I was fired, I met Harold for lunch. Though retired for 3 years, he kept close watch on the company he'd started. They really messed up, he said, shaking his head, trying to rebuild your algorithm from scratch. Fools. We sat in his favorite Tacoma diner, far from prying eyes. Did you expect this? I asked. Harold stirred his coffee slowly. I knew they didn't understand what they'd bought. Private equity types never do. They see just numbers, not systems. He pulled a worn folder from his briefcase and slid it across. Remember this? Inside was our original 2004 partnership agreement. Not the employment contract, but the personal deal between Harold and me. It clearly stated the algorithm remained my intellectual property, with Iron Veil holding an exclusive perpetual license as long as I stayed employed or we had a mutual separation agreement. You protected me then, I said. Harold nodded. You took a risk joining a startup. I wanted to make sure you kept ownership if things fell apart. Did you share this with the new owners? I tried during due diligence. They didn't want old technical details. He made air quotes with his fingers. They only cared about assets and client lists. That's when it all clicked. Julian hadn't fired me on impulse. The private equity firm planned to strip Iron Veil for parts, selling off clients and proprietary tech separately for profit. They needed me gone because I was the only one who really understood how it all fit together. My firing wasn't about new perspectives. It was about making asset stripping easier. There's more, Harold said quietly. Before I left, I added a clause in the sale contract. If the core tech fails for more than 10 consecutive days, I can buy back the company at a set price. I looked at him, puzzled. Why would they agree to that? They missed the fine print, too eager to close the deal. He smiled. I told them it protects their investment in case the tech crashes. So, you can buy it back. We can buy it back, he corrected. I've set aside some funds and a few original investors are interested, but we'll need you. The pieces began to fall into place. Not revenge exactly, but something more deliberate. A correction. That evening, an anonymous email landed in my inbox. Inside that folder was damning evidence. Julian and the consultants had been plotting to sell off our healthcare division to a competitor, an act that would have breached client confidentiality agreements and risked exposing sensitive patient data. Clearly, one of my former team members had been quietly feeding me intel. I forwarded everything immediately to my lawyer. The very next day, 3 of our largest clients publicly announced they were suspending their contracts with Iron Veil, citing concerns over system reliability. Together, their business made up 40% of the company's annual revenue. By the weekend, the board convened an emergency session. Julian was placed on administrative leave. On the 9th day of ongoing system failures, Iron Veil's general counsel reached out with a settlement proposal, a 7-figure payment in exchange for the immediate reinstatement of my license. I chose not to respond. That evening, Karen and I sat quietly on our back deck watching the sun dip below the horizon. Harold wants to buy the company back, I told her. With you? And me? She asked, squeezing my hand. Do you want that? My mind raced through 18 years, countless lines of code, late nights, missed family moments. I'm not sure yet, I admitted honestly. Tomorrow marks day 10. Day 10 came and went, with Iron Veil's system still dark. Financial analysts whispered bankruptcy if this continued. Former co-workers reported the office half empty, victims of layoffs or resignations. I met Harold and my attorney in a private downtown office, with Elaine from Meridian joining via video call. The board is desperate, my lawyer explained. They've offered $3 million for a permanent transfer of your license. And if we hold out? I asked. Harold's buyback clause activates at midnight. The set price is $8 million for the entire company. Harold leaned forward. I've secured $4 million in funding. The rest would need to come from new partners. All eyes turned to Elaine on the screen. Meridian is ready to step in, she said. $4 million for a 40% stake, contingent on Caleb joining as CTO with equity to match. I hadn't expected this turn. I thought you wanted me at Meridian, I said. This is better, Elaine replied. You'd be rebuilding something meaningful with the right team and support. Our companies could collaborate on ventures benefiting us both. My thoughts swirled. Taking back Iron Veil meant saving jobs, protecting decades-old client relationships, continuing the work I believed in. There's one more thing, I said. Many current employees have stayed loyal despite everything. They deserve protection. Agreed, Harold nodded. No layoffs for at least 6 months, plus an employee ownership program. I nodded. Then I'm in. We spent the day drafting paperwork. My lawyer prepared the license transfer agreement with specific terms. Harold contacted trusted board members, explaining the situation. Elaine finalized the partnership details. At 5 p.m., we filed formal notice of Harold's intent to exercise the buyback option. At 6 p.m., Julian called, his voice dripping with panic. "Caleb, whatever they're offering you, we'll double it. Just fix the systems today." "It's not about the money," I said. "Then what? A public apology? Your old job back? Name it." "It's about building something that lasts, something that matters. This is business, not some idealistic dream." I hung up. By 8 p.m., the board had officially fired Julian. They reached out to us directly, desperate to avoid the buyback. "We made mistakes," the chairman admitted, "but we want to make this right." "You're right," I agreed, "by honoring Harold's buyback clause and enabling an orderly transition." At 11:30 p.m., just 30 minutes before the deadline, they relented. The board approved Harold's buyback. Meridian's partnership was accepted. The paperwork was signed. At midnight, I sat at my kitchen table and sent a simple email to my former team. "The algorithm will be reinstated tomorrow morning. Iron Vale is under new ownership. No jobs will be lost. I'll explain everything at the all-hands meeting. Caleb." Karen sat beside me as I hit send. "So, you're going back?" she asked. "Not back," I said. "Forward. Different company, different terms. You'll be busier than ever." "For a while," I admitted. "But this time I won't miss the important moments." She smiled, skeptical but supportive. The next morning I returned to the office for the first time since my termination. People stared as I walked through the lobby, some confused, others relieved. Donna from accounting embraced me in the elevator. "What happened?" she whispered. "Long story," I said. "But the short version, sometimes you have to let something break before you can fix it right." The conference room was packed for the all-hands meeting. Harold stood at the front, energized despite his age. Elaine joined via video. I took my place beside them, feeling the weight of what we were about to rebuild. This wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. 6 months after regaining control of Iron Vale, we hosted a product launch at the Seattle Convention Center. The room brimmed with clients, industry analysts, and media. Harold opened with the company's history and vision. Elaine spoke about our partnership with Meridian. Then it was my turn. I stepped up to the podium, aware Julian sat near the back, now working for a competitor, clearly there to spy. "Today we unveil Integrasphere," I said, "a fully reimagined system architecture that builds on our core strengths while embracing new possibilities." Screens behind me displayed a sleek, powerful, and elegant interface. What makes this system special isn't just the technology, it's the people behind it. Our team, many with us for over a decade, built this together. I nodded toward my development team seated in front. "We've restructured the company to give them an ownership stake. Their dedication deserves nothing less." The crowd applauded. I noticed Julian shift uncomfortably. "We've also launched the Iron Vale Foundation, open-sourcing select technology components for education and public service." More applause. "Finally, every client affected by last year's system failure will receive 2 years of complimentary service plus full migration support to our new platform." The room erupted in cheers. It was a bold financial move, but Harold, Elaine, and I agreed rebuilding trust was worth every penny. As the conda began, Julian slipped out the back door. He'd come expecting a company limping back from disaster, but witnessed one transformed by it. His new employer's stock dropped 8% by closing bell. Sometimes the best revenge isn't striking back, it's rising higher. 1 year after the buyback, I drove to Lake Washington on a bright Saturday morning. No laptop, no phone, just a fishing rod and a small cooler. Harold waited in his boat, silver hair tucked beneath a worn baseball cap. "Right on time," he said as I climbed aboard. We steered toward Harold's favorite fishing spot and settled into a comfortable silence as we cast our lines. Bard gave the green light for expanding employee ownership, he remarked after a while. Another 5% allocated. Good. I kept my eyes on the bobber. They've earned every bit of it. For the next hour, we caught nothing, just swapping stories about our families, baseball, and everything except work. Eventually, Harold broke the quiet with a question. Do you ever think about how everything unfolded? I paused, reflecting. The past 18 months had been both the toughest and most fulfilling stretch of my career. Taking back the company, rebuilding the systems and culture, and learning to balance work with home life. I think about the algorithm sometimes, I admitted. How something I created alone in my apartment became the backbone of it all. Regrets? I shook my head. I could have jumped ship for a better gig or started my own company, but I stayed because I believed in what we were building together. And now, I added, I understand the difference between loyalty and ownership, between creating something and truly belonging to it. Suddenly, my fishing line tightened. I carefully reeled in a solid base. Once it was in the boat, Harold chuckled. Still got the touch, huh? Later, as we made our way back to shore, I spotted the Iron Veil building gleaming in the distance, its logo sparkling in the sunlight. It wasn't the same company anymore, better in some ways, still finding its footing in others. But it was ours, not just mine, not only Harold's or Elaine's. Everyone who'd built it piece by piece. Some things you can't own alone, some things you shouldn't,